This is not an average prison sentence, which is already very, very difficult and already punitive and often violent and scary. Separating people from family, it's emotionally exhausting, it's painful. That's how prison is in general. You add the pandemic conditions to it, we have no programming, we have nothing of substance that's meaningful to offer people who are inside, and the time is even harder time.
We have more breaking news. MCI Shirley Prison is on lockdown after an inmate at the medium security prison tested positive for coronavirus.
If people are very convinced that we need to have some sort of vigilante punitive justice against those who have committed crime, my opinion is you've gotten it.
Tensions were high at the hearing in Suffolk Superior Court.
The Supreme Judicial Court is considering a controversial idea, whether to release some inmates to stop the spread of coronavirus in jails and prisons.
This I think, has been a very disingenuous fear. People are released every single day from the DOC. They go back to their homes, they go back to their communities, and contrary to popular belief, they do lots of great things in their communities.
Argued that the DOC's actions are deliberate indifference, legally defined as a reckless disregard for the consequences of one's acts.
They're still refusing to do the one thing the SJC and the legislature have told them that is needed, and that's release people.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Sir, could you please introduce yourself?
Joseph A. Mesery.
Joe Mesery was one of my first clients, believe it or not. He had the world's most beautiful penmanship. He and others on his unit had been tested for COVID, and he was anxiously awaiting the results. I had a letter to the commissioner ready to go asking that at a minimum he be transferred to someplace other than MCI Norfolk, which was the single worst place in the state. I got a call from Joe, and he told me his test had come back positive. He was having trouble breathing. He was on oxygen. He sounded terrible. That conversation on December 3rd was the last time I ever spoke to him. There was nothing correct about what they did to him while he was alive, and in the last months of his life, it was shameful.
I first started asking him, are you watching the news? Do you know what's going on? When my job got shut down and we had to work remotely, I was like, okay, it's real.
Staggering. More than 70 veterans have died since March, nearly all from COVID-19.
And when I seen the veterans' homes on the news, it became very real that we can't control this, and I don't know what's going to happen to myself or you.
Massachusetts thinks of itself as very progressive, but the reality is that there's a lot of feeling of, you did a crime, you deserve this.
Do you have regular access to hand sanitizer?
No.
Do officers wear masks?
Not all the time, no.
It wasn't until after we filed our lawsuit that masks were actually being distributed to the incarcerated population.
And how are you handling the 23.5-hour-a-day lockdown?
Feels like somebody's playing Russian roulette with my life.
The focus of incarceration is about managing human bodies, controlling and keeping people contained.
Are you allowed to go outside?
No, we're not allowed to go outside.
They say they are drastically limiting movement within prisons to protect the inmates.
We just saw him again in September, and that's from last March. I told him, like, I didn't even remember what you looked like for a second.
It's going to have a mental health effect. It already has.
We couldn't actually go visit every facility to see everybody. We had to really hope that people had the ability to call us. So we filed a motion to stay his sentence based on asthma and the risk of COVID.
It's extremely frustrating because we're watching the outbreak get worse and worse at MCI Norfolk. I think he really feels right now like it's not going to be an emergency to anyone except for his family until he's dead.
It's been very stressful. Everybody's dying because of it.
You used to go see Dad how often?
Well, every Sunday.
I'm pretty sure I was the only person that actually visited Joe in prison over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. The crime, however, occurred 40 years ago.
I am a changed person.
He was parole eligible after 15 years. We can get into the merits as to whether or not he should have been paroled the first time around, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. Whether you agree that someone like that should or should not be paroled, should still be treated as a human being. They should be protected.
When did you put in an application for medical parole?
Never. Never. The person who is petitioning for medical parole, according to the statute, has to be either terminally ill or permanently incapacitated. Someone who is affiliated with WellPath, a guy named Dr. Dakotic, had recommended that he be taken off the intubator and allowed to die.
For-profit company contracted to provide health care is issuing end-of-life care directives to hospitals while the DOC is paying for their care.
I can't.
That's problematic.
Joe never submitted the petition. There's no place for him to go. The victim's family and DA were contacted and they opposed. If he were to somehow get out now and he were to die, who would pay for the burial? They say, if someone is not in DOC custody, we don't pay for the burial.
She's really scared, and I think that Sarima and John both thought that by filing a motion in early November, we would be talking about, by Thanksgiving, at least knowing what was going to happen to John in terms of whether he was going to have to weather this out in prison or whether he would have a chance of being somewhere safer.
Always good to be safe.
The uncertainty is really difficult, and I think it's difficult at the Thanksgiving dinner table. I think it's difficult to explain to your kid that you don't know whether or not Dad's coming home for Christmas.
You're stuck in a facility all day, all night, with the same people coming and going.
One of the most fundamental pieces to understand is that carceral facilities are not closed spaces. They're highly porous ecosystems.
In the big picture, the appellate courts indicated that they wanted people released from these facilities because they're dangerous. Dangerous for the people in them, dangerous for the employees.
We knew that COVID was going to have a devastating impact on carceral facilities.
Nobody likes to hear "I told you so," but that's what we were saying back in April. This is no surprise. I think this actually goes to the sort of Eighth Amendment cruel and unusual punishment issue, where we all knew this was a problem going into it. If you wait long enough, then some of the sick people aren't sick anymore.
So if Dad gets home, where's the celebratory dinner going to be?
Hopefully it's Thanksgiving.
Olive Garden.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can spend the holidays together.
It became real stressful. Locked us down completely. Like they locked the TED doors down. So it's like, at first they try to keep us in the cells, but it's like you can't stay 6 feet apart. I mean, no matter how you move, there's no way you can stay 6 feet apart. Like you're always in somebody's space, like y'all share the same toilet. Then they started taking the test, the COVID test. And then like 20, 30 people started leaving blocks. I mean, that's when it started getting really serious.
Did you know anyone who died?
Yeah. I seen him. He was like real sluggish and he was moving around like mad weird, but he wasn't really talking like he normally do. I ain't think nothing of it. They came and took him. Probably like 3 weeks later, a little before I left, found out that he passed away.
Was his name Joe?
Yeah.
They were having a meeting of the ethics committee within the hospital to determine what to do. It's not too many days after that I receive a call telling me that Joe has received medical parole. And I said, I'm a little troubled. It seems to me as if DOC is trying to wash its hands of responsibility for somebody who'd been in your custody for the past 4 decades.
Hi, Attorney. This is Michelle Weatherby, Chief of the Transitional Services Unit. You had spoken to my parole officer, Diane Kelly, about Mr. Mesmer. We'd really like to have your client released as soon as possible.
To pad statistics in the wrong direction so that it appears as if fewer inmates are dying on your watch. And on the other hand, you're trying to nickel and dime and avoid the expense that you would have of being responsible for his burial. What am I missing? That was Christmas Eve. Never heard from them again. The urgency disappeared. And no matter what you thought of Joe or what he had done, he's not convicted of first-degree murder. Certainly not a death sentence.
If given the chance for parole under supervision, I will make you proud.
I don't think that there's any way that it's justice to let people in a crowded facility get sick and let large numbers of them die when that's preventable. I don't see that as any kind of justice.
This is actually very emblematic and should, I think, make it very clear to people that we don't treat incarcerated people with dignity and respect. If the purpose is truly to rehabilitate, this should be a clear indication that we are nowhere near close to effective.